Last week we added the tallest coaster to the park, so this week it seems only too fitting that we add the smallest because, you know, logic. Hi you guys, welcome back to Beachy Point, welcome back to Planet Coaster. Thank you so much for coming along. Do you remember when we put this massive monstrosity of a coaster in? Yeah, that was fun. They were good times. So this week we are going to be turning the tables because we did say last week that we were going to be doing something with this little tiny coaster here. It is the junior coaster and I have done the necessary work to make the layout actually work. So we are now good to go. So here we are with the station and we're going to come into the lift hill. It's a really shallow lift hill. It's not steep at all. I think it's set to 4 or 5 miles an hour. It's also quite slow, but it then does come underneath the main drop of the hyper into this little first turn, into a bunny hop, and then into a turnaround figure of 8 thing. Then it does another figure of 8 as it comes under itself and then flirts with the hypercoaster just in the foreground there. Comes underneath the hypercoaster like this, into a couple of bunny hops, and then into a brake run. It is literally as simple as that. Now, do you remember also last week I was telling you that the area around this is a complete mess and it feels completely unfinished? Well, we can't say that anymore this week because this is also the focus. Not only am I doing the junior coaster, I'm also going to do all of the area around the hyper in this area, and then of course next week we are going to be doing this. So I think without further ado I should crack on. See you in a bit. Oh yeah, you know what time it is. This is the middle part of the episode and we're dealing with a teeny tiny little coaster, but a pretty big area to work with, and there's quite a lot that's changed. I mean, it's coming together quite nicely. So unlike the Woodie episode, let's actually talk about the coaster first, because I think this is probably going to be known as the landscape episode. There's lots of landscaping that's been going on in this one. So this is the coaster station. I don't want this to be any more than this. In fact, I even toyed with the idea of not having a station, but I've gone for something really simple, a bit of a trellis kind of, or lattice kind of station. It's going to have a metal roof and stuff. That's all it really needs. A bit of a concrete that's thrown down, and then inside you've got all the usual station clutter. You know, there's the push points and the baggage holds and whatever. It's going to need a little bit of touching up, of course it is, a bit of detailing, but I'm ultimately happy with how this is. And then over in the ride area itself, I have actually just done a little bit of work on it. So like a bit of touching up with the track layout and stuff. I've also used some terrain in here. I mean, I'm spamming around the mulch quite a bit, and it's really easy just to spam the mulch around everywhere and just call that your terrain, but no, it needs doing. So I've actually changed the terrain. I do want this to feel like there might have been something in this area before the Mack and the junior coaster was here. So yeah, a little bit of a maintenance area going on this side, and of course we've got a little bit of a shed. So we're all good with this one. I have started to also put the path covers down just to get a feel for the area, and I kind of figured that this area needs to be monetized a bit more. Like, it was too clean, it was too open, it was just, there was not enough going on. So I have put one of the games units down along the side. It feels like the park would have just like slapped it there and be done with it. And then of course I'm starting to make sense of all of these supports here. I have actually tidied some of them up and moved some of them. I always knew I was going to do that, so that's all good. So yeah, this is now coming together quite nicely, and I decided to put like a planter area here, but not here, and that's because you've got lots of spread out supports and stuff in this area, but then you've only got this one here that can just be done by a bigger like concrete footer and then be done with it. So then over here I have actually started to do the landscaping in this area. Now I did want this to feel like before the Mack was in, the queue for this cable cars or the chair lift would actually have come this way and back on itself, and the entrance would have been sort of here, and that's why this whole pathway feels a little bit cut off, because actually it probably would have opened up into the plaza and it would have followed the line of the original queue. So that's what I'm going for. Whoop, hello. in this space. And as we already know, I have copied across the station from the other side to keep it consistent, and as it turns out the station is actually the same size. Happy days. Difference is I've had to make it slightly higher because you do have this bit here on the in-game version of the station, so I wanted it to be a bit of a crawl space, so I've had to do that slightly higher. Bit of terrain work and whatever on the back here, and then of course our ice cream unit now has a bit of a personality coming coming along. It needs a lot of detailing. This is just getting a feel for what I want the ice cream shop to be, and the idea of the queue then being put down this side because they had to move the queue and wrap it around the back. So this area needs to feel like, you know, it was possibly something beforehand and it's now all slapped down. There would be a history to this, but the history would have lost its continuity throughout the years, and you've ended up with this bit of an unsightly, inefficient mess, I think is probably what we're going for here. So I'm happy with that. And then alongside the cable cars here, I am actually going to put in some kind of arcade machines and whatever. I'm not going to make them the in-game ones, but I am just going to put something in here. Again, the area feels like it needs to be monetized quite a bit. Then we've got our next shops. So these need to be tacky, they need to be there, and they need to be just like gross. So that's what we're going for here. I don't really know how I'm going to finish these off yet. I just need to sort of play out the area and see how the area feels. But I'm liking how it's interacting with the supports and how it's just there. It feels like the Mack has come along and just cut right through stuff that has been long established, especially when we start looking at this area. I wanted this to feel like it was a bit of a courtyard, you know, like a bit of a Tudor style courtyard. That's why the Tudor building is still there, but the Mack has come along and just slapped straight through it. It goes over the top of the roof, it cuts right through the middle, it cuts through the plaza. It's everything I wanted this bit to be. And like, you get some pretty decent sightlines of the Mack as you've as you're here. So all I'm going to need to do is just put some benches and picnic benches and stuff and bins and whatever all along this area, and then I think it's going to be cool. So I am going to use a similar style of Tudor building as to the one that I did in Reigate Lake, because I quite like how that is. And UK, you know, we do Tudor architecture pretty well, if I do say so myself. So that's what I'm going for here. I do have to have a couple of supports that go through the roof of the building, because I just don't have the ability to have this bit unsupported because of the speed of the train at this point. So inside the building you may find that actually there would be some supports and whatever, but that's cool, that's fine. And then our Lupo plane I've put in. I did originally have well, this back to the original queue length, but I did stretch the queue out to come back again. But actually, it felt like it needed a games unit here, and again something that's like completely interrupted by the supports of the Mack. So I quite like how this is now sitting. And of course, our Rising Raptor Golden Eagle, I can never remember which one it is now sitting pretty here. It's got its queue line in, and it's going to start to have its personality putting in. And I have decided that actually I want to separate the queue line from the pathway slightly, so we're going to have some planters and stuff and some vegetation and foliage and whatever, just to separate it slightly, because otherwise this is just going to be a big concrete pad, and that's not what I'm going for. No, I'm not going for theme park style gardening or landscaping, but I am going for something that's, you know, a little bit more stylized rather than themed. So yeah, I'm happy with that. And then coming over to the observation tower, again I've just had to wrap the queue around the existing supports for the Mack. So I wanted it to feel like that the observation tower has always been here, and the queue has maybe been altered to reflect the fact, or respect the fact, that the pillars, the supports, sorry, are now in for the Mack. But actually I quite like how this is, and because this is actually quite versatile, people don't tend to walk, I don't think they do anyway, I haven't tried it out, but I don't think the guests are going to walk around this way to get out. They tend to load from one side and then exit on the other, so you can just like cut this off and be done with it. So I'm pretty happy with how that is. And then this main plaza area here, I have actually tidied up the supports. I think I had too many supports in this area, so I've taken a couple of them out. I mean, it's still right, it's still okay, so it's all good. And then I have just put these planters in. Now I need to put the barriers and stuff down just to make it all make sense, but I have actually put the planters in here. And again, it's where you've got lots of clusters of supports. I did want to keep this bit slightly clear, and that's partly because, you know, kids would love running through the supports and whatever, so you have to have some kind kind of adventure when you're doing all of this sort of stuff. So yeah, keeping it here. I'm trying to take some inspiration. I think it's the Swarm, that kind of like really close proximity to all the pillars. And of course, Smiler does it quite well as well in the queue line. So that's what we're going for. And then I am actually going to just continue this. I know I put this down as a placeholder, but actually I think I quite like it. I'm going to have this plain path texture covering off this area and then call it done. And the last thing I've added in is just some more games and stuff on here. And again, because I need cash in the game. If you're playing with cash, then you need cash points. So I'm just going to make this usable as that. So yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with how this is working out so far. I think this is going to look quite clean and tidy once it's all done. I might even put a games unit in the middle here actually, just to clutter up the space. But I need to put all the path covers and stuff down first, just to make it a thing. And remember, I'm trying to deal with its history as well. Excuse me, that's my voice going, knowing that the Mack would have come through and cut through everything, so I need to sort of play with that. So anyway, I'm going to crack on. I'll see you in a minute. And this is what it all looks like when it comes together, and my god, it looks alright, doesn't it? I'm pretty chuffed with this one this week, and it's as expected. It's sort of like orderly but disorderly, it's tidy but cluttered, it makes sense and doesn't make sense simultaneously. Like, this is exactly what I wanted this area to be. The Mack has taken over this area. The kids coaster is here. There have been multiple changes that have happened, like these two rides probably weren't here when the chairlift and stuff was put in, so it all sort of makes sense and doesn't make sense. You get a feel for the history of the area without actually knowing what the history actually is. And of course now you've got the clutter around, so games units and all sorts of monetization stuff. It just looks the part. I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it. So let's talk about the coaster. I have called it the little one. The little one. It needed to be, because of course I know you guys are going to be suggesting names of big coasters, right? So it just makes sense that we pay homage to Blackpool. We go the opposite, we go for the little one. So here's the station inside here. It's all finished off. Again, it's just a little bit of tidying up that was needed in here. It needed its concrete putting down. It needed like the concrete runners inside the station. Don't know if you can see it. There you go, concrete runners inside the station. Just put some lamps and whatever along here, floodlights just to have an emergency situation lighting going on. And yeah, I think it's simple enough to be a kids coaster. It doesn't need to be any more than this. I did toy with the idea of it being Plumple Pop themed, but no, not with this one. The roof, of course, it's on. I didn't use the same metal sheeting that I've used elsewhere. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have it as a smooth roof. But I did want to make a thing of these little beams going along here, so that's why we've got those. It looks like they're sticking out, but they're not. That's by design. I actually quite like it. I did have the concrete on here multiple different colours. At one point it was green, it was blue, I think it's been red. I actually settled for a sand colour instead. It kind of feels like it needs to be a little bit consistent with the hyper station, so that's what we've got going on there. Now, of course, I've tidied up all the outside here. We've now got all of the foliage in. Everything is now sitting lovely. The terrain paint has actually made the difference. It's no longer grass. I've still created a problem for myself for future me with this exterior fencing, so I haven't bothered to fix this fencing or whatever, but it's fine. This is the coaster, and yeah, it looks alright. It weaves in and out of stuff. It reminds me a little bit of not Grand National, the other one that I am just not going to remember. Steeplechase, there it is. Yeah, it reminds me of Steeplechase. That goes through quite a nice little grassy, almost woody area and whatever. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. Just it's a little bit more extreme than that, right? And so then we come down to the chairlift, and yeah, the station is quite nicely put together. I don't know if I'm going to put concrete and stuff down here yet. So the reason I've not done that is because I've got some stuff over here that I need to do to make this make sense. You'll see in the future. So anyway, I put the queue line, brickwork and whatever down, so it's all sorted and all sussed. And then we've got this little unit here. This is just gross, and it's supposed to be gross. I wanted to... Oh, hello. Let's get out of the way of the chairlift. I wanted to make it quite tidy and quite stylish and quite elegant, but actually no. This doesn't need to be. This is probably one of the longest lasting units of this old historic area, so it's probably falling apart by now. It's probably on its last legs. It won't be here for long. It's Yeah, so that's what we're going for. So what I've done is I've just given it a little bit of a lick of paint and given it some bright colours and stuff. This would definitely not be the original colours. The roof would probably be the original colour. That's why it's that sandy colour. But yeah, it's just the idea that they've probably swapped out this unit so many times. It's just on its last legs. A little bit of clutter outside the front, and you can then call it done. So around by the Rising Raptor, Golden Eagle, whichever one it is, I keep forgetting to check. I've just put in the flowers and foliage in here. I didn't originally want trees along here, but when I didn't have them, it was just, I don't know, it was just too barren. It just felt too open, so I've actually put them in, and I think it looks alright. I think it's pretty decent. It kind of separates the area quite nicely, so you know we'll go for that. Queue line itself then is all sorted. It doesn't need to be any more than this, but what I did do is I put a games unit into this area. Again, it just felt too open without it, but now I think it feels a little bit too claustrophobic with it. But I draw your attention to the area outside the big one where the carousel is literally there, and you've got this tiny little gap that you've got to walk through to get there. So that's kind of the vibe that I'm going for here. You know, it opens up into this quite big plaza, but actually it's a little bit tight in this little space. So yeah, that's fine. We'll go for it. Games unit over here. Can't remember if this was already in the last update, but anyway, there's a games unit there. And of course, I've then just done the usual trick with the path covers just to make them make sense and to transition the area from one place to another. Lupo plane, that's all in. Of course, I've not done the foliage and stuff down here yet, because in the next episode we're going to do this station. This will take care of all of this bit on the back here, so forgive the mess for now. It is what it is. I'll just put some flowers, and not flowers, sorry, some bushes all along here, and then I have finished the courtyard. I like how this now sits, like, yes, it just sits so nicely in the, well, it's not, it's the other way around, isn't it? So in terms of lore of the episodes or canon of the episodes, this sits quite nicely in the gap of the hyper, but actually in reality it'd be the other way around. This would have already been here and the hyper comes in over the top of it, so it sits either way. They complement each other and they sit quite nicely. So courtyard had a bit of clutter adding. I finished off all of the Tudor stuff. I don't want to go too extreme with it, because it's not a theme park, remember, it's stylized rather than themed, so that's what we're going for. That's what we're going for here. And then, of course, you've got all the path covers down, and then just lots and lots of seating. This is a very, very key seating area, and it's questionable whether you would have it directly under the rides and stuff, but it's fine. It's travelling fast enough. You're not going to get too much of a problem. And if worst case scenario, you'd probably put nets and stuff up anyway. So yeah, it's all good. By the way, I've put a load of AEDs around everywhere. In the UK, we've got a community AED project where you can apply to have these AEDs everywhere. You've got to pay for the upkeep and stuff, but the idea is that if someone has a cardiac arrest out and about, then you can actually rescue them. So I've just put a couple of those around, because parks tend to have them pretty much everywhere. Yeah, so over this way, I've tidied this area up. It still feels a little bit barren. I don't know what's missing, and I think I don't know what's missing because I need to do all of this bit here. I've got plans and stuff for what's coming into these spaces, and I think that's going to start to feed what happens here. Hence the reason why I've also not done the concrete in the chairlift, because it's sort of part of all the same thought process I've got to go through. But what I have done is just tidied up the queue line fencing here. I think I had a couple of fence bits missing, so that's now all sorted, bins and whatever in here. And then I've actually put loads of overgrowth in here. Now, I did think that the Mack would probably be quite new, but at the same time, it's not new, so it's had enough time to grow over, and bushes and stuff would have been put in. And the reason why is because I wanted this to feel quite claustrophobic, almost like it was previously quite open, but it's now quite claustrophobic. So that's what I'm going for here, especially as you've got the support network from the coaster coming through in all sorts of places, and it's just like they've literally slapped it around the ride. That's exactly what I'm going for. But then what that led to is lots of other foliage in the ride area here. So here it is. It's looking all right. We've actually still got a couple of episodes to go, by the way. This is what we're going to be working on next week. I need to get all of this stuff tidied up. I've got shops and whatever that I need to put underneath here. I need to finish off this drop tower ride as well. And then we are actually going to start moving into this area. So there's a good couple of episodes left. Don't worry, guys. I've got you. Right, let's go for a ride on our little junior coaster. Thank you so much for getting to the end of the episode. I really do appreciate it. Please look after yourselves. Have a good week. Take care. Bye.